I'm gonna give that to
7 o'clock. This is the Breezy Point City Council. The date is Tuesday, September 6, 2016. This is a regular meeting of the Breezy Point City Council. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next order of business is the consent calendar. We have before you the council minutes from the regular meeting of August 1st and the special meeting of August 16th. We have the approval of claims totaling $115,209.85, which is including checks 1618E through 1623E, electronic checks, and then paper checks 132870, 132874, 132927 through 132992. And then we also have the partial pay for the Deschantel excavating for the work on Winter Trail. Is there anything that you would like to see off the consent calendar discussed separately?
Mayor, I'd like to pull the minutes off for discussion
Okay,
for the August 1st meeting.
okay. Councilman Maroney?
No.
Councilman Williams?
No.
Councilman Buckman?
No, sir.
So we have the minutes from the August 1st meeting, did you say?
I'm sorry, August 8th,
What?
the regular meeting.
August 1st.
August 1st, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we'll pull the council minutes for the August 1st, and then everything else, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We'll consider the regular meeting minutes for August 1st. Councilman Schmidt.
I noticed in the discussion, or on page 3, where the discussion took place regarding the Planning Commission and the comprehensive plan, the last sentence said there was no discussion of a joint meeting with the Planning Commission. Everybody see that? If my memory serves me right, there was a discussion, and I think prior to that, in a couple of sentences up, I think it was indicated that myself and I believe Williams, Council Member Williams, talked about the joint meeting. So there was discussion. I'd like to know, in addition to striking that last sentence, I'd like to know where we are with the joint meeting.
I haven't scheduled anything, so you and I talked about it. We're working on the animal husbandry piece, and after that, we'll talk about council setting up a meeting.
Has the Planning and Zoning Commission discussed this?
Just kind of briefly, not really formally, no. Some of the members have been talking about it. I know that Joe Ayers had talked to him about it. I talked to the engineer, some of the others.
Well, I'd move the minutes be approved with the changes that I recommended that last sentence.
Okay, the sentence, there was no discussion on a joint meeting with the Planning Commission be stricken?
Yes.
Okay. Further discussion?
Yes. I have a
Councilman
question.
Williams?
May I speak to Otto?
Sure.
Otto, what would be the point of meeting with the planning commission when you and I were outvoted and they accepted the changes already? I mean, it's a
Well, I
done deal.
understand there is going to be a meeting, correct?
We're trying to put together something that would
To what end, when this thing was already, approved?
talk about broad pictures, not necessarily just the comprehensive plan, that kind of stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds fine, but, I mean, the horse has already left the barn on this deal.
I understand.
Okay.
And I concur with you. I'm not looking to discuss the comprehensive plan. That's over and done with.
And I agree that, you know, this can be setting the foundation for the direction that we want the city to be going, as well as kind of setting the very, very preliminary groundwork in another 5 years for when the plan is going to be redone.
Correct.
That's a good idea. Further discussion, Councilman Baca?
No, sir, none at this time.
Councilman Williams?
No.
Councilman Schmidt, anything more?
Nope.
Councilman Maroney?
No.
All those in favor of accepting the August 1st minutes as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are accepted. Next item of business is open forum. Anybody that wishes to bring anything before the city council may do so at this point. You can please step to the microphone, state your name and address, and address the city council. Anybody wishing to address open forum? Open forum is closed. We do have some people running for office in the next term. The candidates for mayor are Tom Bullhigh, 29828 Lakeshore Drive, and that's me. I'm running unopposed. For city council, we have 2 openings, and we have 4 people that are running. Jeff Helland, 30784 Airport Road. Gene Daler, 7266 Fairway Lane. Rebecca Ball, 31974 Green Scene Drive. And Gary Mitchell, 6944 Nickel Road. It's encouraging to see added interest in openings on the city council, so that it's good to see the public involvement. Council members, Councilman Bakken, anything to report?
No, sir.
Councilman Williams?
I have one question for Joe. When I had asked you about the speed on Highway 39, have you found anything out about that
I
yet?
haven't thought anything about it. I did email Ron Wall, County, to let him know if there's Yes, that.
Well, just to bring the rest of you up to speed.
Okay.
It was brought to my attention that with the boat launch there and people pulling out from the Aussie boat launch, hauling trailers, that the cars are flying by there pretty fast, and it's kind
Okay.
of blind curve from kind of both sides. And there was some concern there about someone perhaps
That's a good point.
not getting their trailer out of the way quick enough. So,
Yeah. Councilman Schmidt?
No, none of me.
Councilman Maroney?
I have a few things. Last month I reported that on August 2nd was the National Night Out over in Pequot Lakes. I was able to attend that, and great turnout with all the law enforcement in the local area, plus a lot of face for our Breezy Point law enforcement. We had great force out there, so that was greatly appreciated. I think it was widely attended. It was a very great night, and a lot of activities going on there. Also in line with that, I had the opportunity to do another ride along with our law enforcement here on Friday night. Went out from about 6 o'clock to 3:30 in the morning. So I got to kind of see how, again, what our law enforcement does around the area, the community policing and being proactive. And, so that was always an enjoyment to be able to go out and get educated on that. And third, a group of us did meet Mr. Bakken, Planning and Zoning Commission, our Planning and Zoning Administrator, and Joe met last week to discuss animal husbandry. I think we made some great progress, and that's going to be going back to the P&Z. They'll be discussing it, they'll have to have a public hearing, then it'll come back to us, and I think we made some pretty good headway on that.
Very good. Next item of business, Planning Commission. We have before you ordinance 16-02, and what it deals with is temporary health care dwellings. The state of Minnesota passed a bill into law creating the authorization for property owners to have a temporary dwelling on their property. And this temporary dwelling can be in the form of an RV, camper, or something like that, some temporary housing to serve as a dwelling for a person that needs medical assistance. And the city has the option to opt out of that law. There's kind of a long thing from League of Minnesota Cities that kind of explains and answers all the frequently asked questions on something like that. But if we do not want to implement that authorization, we have to have an ordinance that would opt us out of that provision. And so, Ordinance 1602 is providing the opt-out option for the requirement of the temporary health care dwelling units.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second. Councilman Williams, any further comment?
No, I did appreciate the nice discussion from the league, and I share some of those concerns.
Right.
I'm like, wow, that, we could have a situation we really don't want without more thought being put in.
Councilman Bakken.
I agree. No further comment.
Councilman Schmidt.
Joe, is there any city in the state of Minnesota that offers this as a possibility?
Take the opt-in, or something you're asking, that will continue with the law. Deepwater Lakes is continuing with it. There are a few cities that are fully developed that are looking at it, saying, you know, this is a good situation for us because we're fully developed. Most cities are, at least from my reading.
The unit itself, size-wise, would be about as big as a 20 by 40 container?
Don't even think it's that big. I don't recall, to be honest, how big it is.
Thought it was 300 square feet.
So,
Basically a small, one-bedroom unit.
yeah, my read on it would be like a small trailer, you know, one of these tiny houses type of things, all the way up to an RV. Yeah, I think the reasons that planning and zoning provided was that we want more control over it, and we just don't see that fitting in with our existing ordinances and restrictions that we have right now.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with the ordinance. I was just kind of curious. Evidently, somebody in the legislature must have felt compelled enough to
Explain
bring
it
it
in
to
here, somebody
statute.
named Peterson had an issue trying to get her father's stuff situated.
Yeah, somebody in the legislature pushed so hard. The league fought very hard to allow cities to opt out because of the zoning issue.
Yeah,
But the planning commission also discussed how do we get rid of these things once we have them.
yeah,
It just becomes really problematic.
I agree. No, I don't have any other
Councilman
comments.
Barney?
I agree with what the Planning and Zoning Commission came up with on a recommendation on that. They brought up some very valid points and
Those in, I'll take the question. All those in favor of ordinance 1602 to opt out of the temporary dwelling?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ordinance is approved. Do we have to have a summary?
No, it's too small.
Okay. Next item of business is Deacon Lodge Second Edition preliminary plot. You have the application for the CUP that was provided to Planning and Zoning, and their resolution 1607, which approved the preliminary plot. You can read the, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it's an expansion to their development up on Deacon's Lodge. I will entertain a motion to approve resolution 1621.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Bakken, anything further?
No, it was well presented. It's within the requirements.
Councilman Williams?
I have a question for Joe.
Sure.
Is there any kind of estimate of what the park dedication will be on that?
It'll be 5/8 of $50,000.
Okay. take my shoes off to do the math.
I haven't done the math, but they get credit for 3 lots and they're adding 8, so. And I have a copy of
Maybe
the.
about 60% of that number,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Joe, if I'm not mistaken, I gotta go back and look at that resolution. I did have a problem with the ambiguity that's contained in that parking, overflow parking. And
Yep.
I understand, if I recall the discussion at the meeting, the P and Z meeting, they specifically mentioned overflow parking would be available at the Deacon's Lodge parking lot.
They also discussed it at the marina, and in the end, they decided not to really designate any one place.
And that was why?
I guess basically because there were some people that felt they'd want to keep their boat at the marina versus at the golf course.
But that would be their choice.
Yes.
Well, it seems to me, and I think all of us could sit here and draw up a number of issues because of the ambiguity contained in previous types of issues like this. We get ourselves all tied up in knots trying to figure out what the intent was and so on. I don't understand why we wouldn't specifically say the parking lot at Deacon's Lodge and/or the marina parking lot.
You know, I don't know.
Some objection from White Birch?
I don't know that there specifically were, but Dave Landecker's here if you'd like to ask him.
Okay. David?
I thought this was just gonna be a slam dunk.
No, it is. I just wonder why they're.
It is.
I'm David Landecker from Wenk Associates representing White Birch. So, Mr. Smith, your question is appropriate because we did not, I mean, it could say Deacon's Lodge and/or. I mean, that's what I thought that we had discussed. So, I mean, we just wanted the flexibility. If somebody wanted to park in the boat marina or at some other designated parking location, that they weren't restricted just to park at Deacon's Lodge. So the language certainly could have said Deacon's Lodge and/or other resort parking facilities.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that also.
Are we referencing condition number 8? Because it does say parking spaces shall include 56 spaces for passenger vehicles. Overflow parking area shall be designated with appropriate signage at Deacon's Lodge parking lot and/or other resort parking areas.
That's in 1607?
That's in the planning commission's, yes.
Number 8.
That's the conditional use
Number
permit.
8.
That's not this resolution we're talking
No.
about.
So the conditions set forth in PC 16-07 are different than 1621?
1621 is approving the final plat, or the preliminary plat. 1607 is approving the conditional use permit.
Right. Okay,
So what's it?
so the
Proceeds.
1607 approves the conditional use permit. And that has already been approved by planning and zoning.
Right.
This 1621 is basically approving the maps.
Yeah, approving the preliminary plat, and it's somewhat a summary of the conditions that were imposed in the CUP.
1607 is the controlling document for all the details.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the reasons I was bringing this up. I understand the CUP, but as long as we decided to discuss the provisions, why wouldn't we have just picked it out of that CUP?
I don't know, Otto, I mean, I guess that's just the way I wrote it, and I wasn't really thinking about it in that context.
Well, again, we've had problems in the past when questions come up and then we go back and we look at it and we say, well, gee, you didn't say that, and, you know.
Well, I still look at it as 1607 as the controlling document. 1621 is just approving the preliminary plat.
Okay. But you felt compelled to put in the provisions that the planning commission addressed in the CUP.
I did.
Would there be any problem?
No, we can change it if you'd like it that way, that's fine.
Yeah, I would think if we're gonna do that, then we just take that language and drop it in there. Otherwise,
Sure.
I'd just say take it all out, you know, if we're gonna just address the preliminary plat. know, I understand what you're saying, Joe. I'm just saying, we're gonna do it, keep it consistent.
That's fine, I'll do that. I'll make that change.
So what I hear you saying is basically that entire section that starts with now therefore be it resolved, and then conditions 1 through 16, you want that dropped into right after the whereas.
Well, it says, yeah, it says whereas the planned unit development, and the planning commission found that it, and then it lists 1, 2, you know.
Right, so you basically want 1 through 16 inserted instead of 1 through 8.
Well, I would, you know, I understand what Joe's saying, but I would say either take it all out or put it all in.
What would you prefer?
I don't know.
Tom,
What's
can I
what's-
ask a question?
yes.
What about this one right here, where this is in that resolution that references that as it being attached? Page
This is
2.
1607 attached.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
part of the resolution
Okay.
1621.
Yeah. Councilman Williams has a good point, because the fourth paragraph down on page 2 essentially incorporates Planning Commission 1607 in the entire document.
Okay.
So
They
by
go-
that reference, it's there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Good point.
Good point.
So essentially, that entire list of conditions is
Yeah.
actually incorporated into 1621.
Okay. Then we've got verbiage in there that's not necessary.
Correct. Well, it's essentially a summary, just for ease of reading. Anything further?
Nope.
Okay, Councilman Marty? No. Moved and seconded for approval of Resolution 1621. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution 1621 is approved. Next item is our preliminary levy for the 2017 budget. We had a little bit of a problem this year with the departure of Janae for getting this stuff done. So we do have a preliminary budget put together, and I'll have to commend Joe for getting all this stuff done with minimal help. And we have come up with a budget increase of 4.68% based on the preliminary numbers. And so we have elected to set a preliminary level of 5%, giving us a little cushion before we have to set the final levy by the end of the year. I will entertain a motion to approve the preliminary levy at 5%.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Schmidt, comments?
Just some things I'd like to go on record questioning, I guess, and maybe the committee, working with Joe, could pursue some of these things. On the question dealing with planning and zoning, I know that Joe's indicating a desire to look at an increase in what we're paying the consultant planner. And I believe he noted that the NGPA would be more expensive,
Yes,
but there are other possibilities.
there could be. I mean, you start working on NJPA, we're looking at a full-time staff member. What we're talking about with Jerry is a $10 increase from $25 to $35 an hour. NJPA is charging $45 an hour, well, actually $50 an hour.
I know, but can't-
So, you know, it's this sort of trade-off, and we felt that was the best solution at the time. Finance Committee did talk about that, and they felt that was appropriate.
Yeah, and it may be, it's just that I saw the two choices, stay with present or NGPA.
Sure.
And I just thought, you know, there are consultants, there are, in fact, I don't know, is WSN, do they have planning staff?
Excuse me?
WSN have planning staff?
At NJPA, yes, they do.
No, how about WSN?
What's that?
WSN,
I can try to answer that. We have engineers that at times sit on planning boards to advise in the way of engineering related matters, but we don't have pretty good planning staff.
Oh, okay.
And the billing rate would probably be greater than $45 an hour.
I would suspect so. If you get that PE, you can steal.
Hey, I resemble that remark. Anything else?
Yeah. The other question I had, and I've had some inquiries about the EDA. We have an EDA.
We sort of do.
Sort of do, yeah, and I think I might have even been appointed to
I can't remember.
be the council representative on that.
All the terms have expired except for the 2 council representatives. And to change it to all council, we have to adopt an ordinance restating how it will be formulated, and with no action or no things before the EDA, we just haven't gotten to it, didn't feel it was necessary. I did ask the city attorney 2 or 3 years ago, should we go ahead and do that? And he said, well, you need to pass the ordinance to make that change. Actually, it's a resolution, an enabling resolution, because the enabling resolution says 3 members at large and 2 council members. And so we would have to change that enabling resolution.
Now, the EDA statutorily, as I understand it, has some duties and responsibilities that if they choose, if the city chooses, they can become involved, right?
They
Like going
do.
out and looking for
Well,
development.
they do, but our ordinance, or our enabling resolution doesn't really give them a whole lot of power. All power rests with the city council in the end. They're a recommending body.
Okay.
Some EDAs are set up, much like you suggest, that they can do whatever they want.
Well, I'm not suggesting they do whatever they want. I just made the statement that one of the purposes of having an EDA is to go out and foster development
Correct.
in a particular community, locale, or region. Mary, you're a representative on the RDC.
Correct.
Are they still involved in economic
Oh,
development?
yes, very much involved.
So one of the concerns I've had serving on this council is we became painfully aware that we are not a particularly diverse economic-based community. We rely very heavily on a single source of activity related to the resort. And I think one of the things that perhaps, getting back to perhaps allaying some of the fears that Diane has about the joint meeting, that might be something we want to talk about, is economic development activities in the city, what role the EDA and the P&Z could play. I know a lot of cities I worked in, the EDA was a standing committee of the P&Z. And they would recommend projects, and the P&Z would review them and make recommendation to the council.
Okay.
But that was one of the things I wanted to bring up, because like I said, I've had some people ask me, do we not still have the EDA? And I said, yeah, I think we do. But,
Right? Yeah.
so I don't know, that might be something the finance committee may want to look into, and I would ask the mayor when he meets with the Region 5 Development Commission, may want to look at what the heck are they doing? You know, economic development wise, and what benefit does this particular city derive from the fact that we happen to be in that region?
Okay.
Mr. Mayor? A brief comment. I would totally agree with Councilman Schmidt's suggestion. And that's been bantered around amongst folks I've talked with for some time. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I want to thank the councilman for his foresight.
Councilman Maroney, anything? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to accept the, no, we've already done that. All those in favor of the preliminary levy being set at 5%, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Preliminary levy has been approved at 5%, which means that we cannot exceed 5% on the final levy, but we can reduce it.
And just for kicks and giggles, when will we be looking at that final levy?
December meeting.
December meeting?
It's,
December meeting?
Yep.
I think it'd be well if our scribe from the Echo understands that, so that perhaps people could be informed, A, that this wasn't the final levy, that's going to be dealt with in the meeting.
Very important.
Next order of business is is ordinance 16.03. It is the change to our golf cart ordinance that will put in a minimum age of 15 for driving golf carts on the city street. We had discussion on this a couple months ago, and everybody agreed that we should be doing this. So I'll entertain a motion for ordinance 1603, and we'll have discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Councilman Watkins, you're the one that brought this up.
I am. Thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss it. I think it's well explained in the ordinance. Minor adjustment. I'm in complete agreement with it, and January 1, as the administrator has suggested, is, of course, a reasonable date. It's prudent, and that's all I have to say.
Okay. Councilman Williams.
I agree, but I also wonder to enforce that, because oftentimes you see kids driving four-wheelers with little babies in diapers hanging off the back, and you see them on golf carts. By the time you can call for anybody, they're long gone.
Indeed, true. Enforcement, even enforcement right now is
Difficult
is
at
difficult,
best.
but, you know, at least we have it out there so that they will have to acknowledge the fact that this has been a change. And I would further recommend that we would do it in bold lettering on the application so that it stands out as, you know, new to 2017.
May
This
I?
is required.
May I?
Yes.
Good point, Mr. Mayor, and the administrator and I have worked with this in several meetings over the past 6 to 8 months. That will be on the new permits, as I understand it. That will be boldly, and they in essence are taking the risk upon themselves, letting a child under 15 years of age drive down the street, as I witnessed here quite recently. And I haven't seen a whole lot of violations. Quickly, you can call the police department, 562-4488, if I'm correct, Chief, that's the number, and they can make a radio call very quickly. Whoa.
I would like to request that they call the sheriff's dispatchers, because calling our office, the officers aren't always in the office, and getting office staff, they're not in radio contact with the officers either. Dispatchers are. They're trained to get caller information and locations and such. So calling the sheriff's department either through 911 or the non-emergency number of 829-4749 is the best way to reach officers who are on patrol.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to address that comment from the chief. I totally disagree with you, Chief. It is the responsibility of this police department, and you are and your force charged with that responsibility to serve and protect these public places. I have been involved in calling 911 and the Crow Wing County dispatcher more times than I want to talk about. It has always been this councilman's position that it is a cumbersome, a slow operating system. I have for a long time, I remember very well, Chief, when you could call 562-7811 Breezy Point main desk, and at that time, Chief, as you well know, they had communications abilities with the police, and it was very quick. It's a cumbersome procedure, and I, for one, will be calling 4488 and reporting a problem. I've been with it more times than I can talk about, and it's slow. I just wanted the public to realize that.
Councilman Schmidt.
Chief, would the 911, would this be considered Well, it's obviously it's a non-emergency situation,
You bet.
Depends on the circumstances.
but in your judgment, would it not?
I
be-
wouldn't call 911 necessarily, depending on the circumstances of the age of the kids and how they're driving, and
Right.
you know, if you're seeing something that's clearly putting lives in danger, then that's a 911. If the kids are just driving down the street and they're not driving erratically, or you know, they're just going about their business, then I might call a non-emergency number.
I don't disagree with Gary. I know I've had personal experience trying to get a hold of our department members on weekends, for example, when there's nobody around, calling 911. I kind of regretted doing that because it was not an emergency, but we were having an issue down at the city beach. And I got a call from the sheriff's water patrol, and the guy was sitting out at Cass Lake. And nothing he could do for me. And I told him, all I'm trying to do is get a hold of who was on duty from our police department, and asked the dispatcher if I believe Brian was on duty that day, and asked to have him call me, or asked whoever was on duty call me. Never got the call, except from the sheriff who was sitting out in the boat in the lake at Cross Lake, and just happened to come across Brian, who was making his rounds, and he was heading towards the beach, so we had a little conversation. I explained to him what my concern was, and he took care of it. But that was my experience, so I'm not.
Was that something on the water? Was that a?
It was on the public, our city beach.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was if it was a boat or jet ski complaint. They would
No.
direct you to them.
No, it was within the confines of the buoys, the markers that demark where the swimming area is. And, I tried to explain to the dispatcher.
That is still outside the city of Breezy Point.
Once they step in the water,
Correct.
but they were doing both. They were also on the beach.
Yeah. But it is, in most cases, it's kind of, a lot of times they give us calls that are clearly on the water, and,
Yeah.
not all dispatchers, they make mistakes. They're human as well, but 4488 will, and oftentimes just get an answering machine, and, those are answered as time permits, and it could be hours before something that should be handled quicker.
Okay, anything else?
This is basically an insurance issue, correct?
Well, it's a safety and an insurance issue. I see it as an insurance issue because I don't think 15, or people younger than 15 are covered by the liability insurance that they're carrying. Golf cart.
Through their, motor vehicle insurance?
Right. Well, some are motor vehicles, some are homeowners. But the argument that the league made when we talked to them was that arguably you can't get insurance for under 15 to drive on public streets.
My understanding is through their liability insurance on their home.
Yeah.
Not,
Not their auto,
the auto
yeah.
has nothing to do with it, correct?
We see it both ways. We do some auto,
We do.
they give us cards and the whole bit, yeah.
So we require proof of insurability?
Absolutely, yes.
And you'll accept automobile insurance?
They list the golf cart. They put the VIN number on, the type of cart, the year, everything. It's auto insurance or it's homeowner's insurance. Minimum coverage has to be Minnesota motorcycle coverage, which is basically an auto policy.
Okay.
Councilman Maroney?
It's unfortunate that the parenting of the few are affecting the parenting of the many in this. Tom, you mentioned that we talked about this a few months ago and we were all in agreement. I don't think we had a discussion.
Well-
It was brought up that it was going to be discussed,
Right,
but I wasn't too much in favor with it. I did call my insurance company and I asked them, I said, is my daughter, who is going to be 7 years old, covered if she were to be driving the golf cart on the city street and get in an accident? And they said, yes, you are covered. And I said, well, what kind of insurance do I have? They said, well, you have insurance on a golf cart, part of your autos, and we consider that as a recreational vehicle. They said, legally, we can't speak legally. I said, I understand that. I said, I'm concerned about, am I covered if my daughter gets in an accident? They said it'd be no different if they accidentally got into the car and put it in gear and drove down the city street and hit something else. No license, it was an accident. Those things happen, that's why we have insurance. So for the league to really, call out and saying, I mean, it's an insurance issue, I don't think it is. I think it's a matter of being proactive and inquiring about the correct insurance. At the same time, I understand the concerns that having children that are not well-trained, not parented very well, on city streets and not being recommended of proper etiquette of driving on city streets. So that I understand why we're coming up with an age limit, and we believe the age of 15, you're able to get your learner's permit to be driving on city streets, and I understand that age requirement. And so I'm not totally against it, but what I'm upset about is we're talking about the majority because of a few. And I think that's what a lot of things stem from. I do, and I understand that. It's just unfortunate. I myself have been trying to teach my daughter how to drive a golf cart properly. I've always been in control, full control of the golf cart, but she's been in the driver's seat, teaching her to look left, look right, trying to distract her. She doesn't become distracted. But at the same time, I don't think I'd ever let my daughter, in this day of age, I mean, we've all heard the news lately, I don't think I'd let my daughter drive it alone, even a mile away to Grandma and Grandpa's house. It's a scary world that we live in. So it's unfortunate that we've come to this. I don't think it's a pure insurance issue, but I understand a larger issue at hand. So that's it.
Is there any kind of a liability issue, Mayor, as far as the city is concerned by issuing the permit?
No, as long as we verify insurance, we've done our duty. It's no different than the people that give out your license tabs for your car. It's the same difference.
I would ask just if we could direct staff to clear up this issue of whether or not automobile insurance covers golf carts. 'Cause
I know
was
for a
told by
fact
my
it
agent
does.
They don't, but,
I know for a fact it does. I mean, we've gone down that road several times because we've had this argument, if you will, about umbrella coverage versus automobile coverage. And under state law, you've got to have at least a minimum of motorcycle coverage, which is an auto policy. But umbrella coverage also covers it on your homeowner's policy.
Okay.
My insurance chooses to cover it under our homeowner's insurance.
Yeah, that's what my agent told me too. He
Yeah.
indicated the auto doesn't cover it, but that's,
In mine, they give me, I gotta give them a serial number, model, make, what kind of coverage, deductibles.
on your
And
home.
that's probably,
Oh,
yeah,
your auto.
Autos.
yeah, and that's probably up to the insurance company is how they want to handle it. All those in favor of ordinance 1603, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ordinance 1603 is adopted. Next item, I truly have to say I didn't really read it in specific. Basically, legislation passed in 2016 requires all counties to adopt an elections emergency plan. And you have here the Crow Wing County Emergency Plan, and the motion would be to adopt the Crow Wing County Emergency Election Plan.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Councilman Williams?
I do, I have a question for Joe.
Yes.
Do you wait, we don't know there's going to be an emergency,
No.
of course, but do you wait until the time of the emergency to pick an alternate site? Or do you have something in mind right at the moment?
You pretty much have to deal with it at the time. I mean, if a tornado came through, you don't know that the school's going to be untouched. So you've got to find a place that will work for you. If it's all of a sudden we've got power outage and we need to get a generator, it'll still be here, but we've got to deal with the generator situation. So it's just it's kind of flying by the seat of your pants and making the best out of whatever you're dealt with.
So you don't have anything in mind that would be a potential, you don't talk to anybody ahead of time and say, hey, if we have this emergency, can we come there? Or you just show up?
We'd have to talk to them, but I'm sure most people would be understanding. I don't think we'd have any problem with the school.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had
No.
a tentative plan.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Okay. Councilman Bakken? Any else? Councilman Schmidt?
Sort of related to this is at the primaries. I walked in, unbeknownst to me, is they requested a driver's license. That's new.
I don't think it's required as long as you're registered, but they can swipe the driver's license in these new, what do they call those, Patty? E-reader.
Yeah.
And so that will bring up the registration so they don't have to look it up and wade through the files.
Yeah, they scan the barcode in the back of your
I
driver's
didn't
license.
show them mine.
You don't have to.
You don't have to, but it's just a matter of ease in the use of those machines.
And it speeds things up.
Yep.
That's the whole intent.
Yes, speed things up, yes.
Yeah, we didn't even know we were gonna get one of those readers until about 2 days before or a week before or something like that. Yeah.
Well, I don't have any problem with people showing, in fact, I personally think people should show some kind of a legitimate picture ID. We do for everything else under the sun. I can't imagine voting be anything different.
Although that's not really pertinent to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I understand. And I know we want to get out of here after 60 minutes.
Yeah, the
But the,
basketball game starts.
The only question I would have is, we have a general election coming up, a presidential general election.
Yes.
And the only thing I could see happening is if people started opting out and saying, yeah, I'm not going to show you my driver's license, isn't that going to kind of back things up?
Well, it does a little bit, but it's not really much different than the books. We used to have a paper book, and you'd have to flip through the pages and find where their name is, if they're registered, and then they'd sign in. If they're not registered, they've got to show some form of identification to get registered. And a driver's license, and there's other ones you can give.
But again, I have to interject here. This has nothing to do
Yep.
with the topic that we're talking about here.
That's
I'll
correct.
call the question.
We're talking about the emergency plan, not the
Yeah.
election procedures.
Yeah, I understand.
Councilman
Call
Barone, do you have any comments?
No.
If you do.
All those in favor of, oh, I do have one question on the county plan. How is this thing going to be updated? There's a lot of specific names in here and phone numbers and
We're
everything
adopting the
else.
county plan by reference. It's the county's responsibility to maintain and keep this plan up.
Okay, so then we don't have to do anything because we're just adopting it by reference.
That's correct.
Okay. All those in favor of adopting the Crow Wing County plan, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Crow Wing County emergency election plan is approved, adopted, whatever you want to say. Next item is, I think, one of these things that, that's a good thing for everything. It's property trade between Scott and Lynn V. and the city of Breezy Point. You'd have to kind of look at the plot maps, and you can see that he has 2 lots that are not contiguous, and he would like to swap one of our lots for one of his lots, and have a contiguous lot so that he can build an accessory building. You can see on the plot maps there, and it's basically a wash to the city. He's offered to pay all the costs associated with the legal descriptions of the trade. And so I'll entertain a motion to direct staff to proceed with the trade
So
of
moved.
the city's lots.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Councilman Bakken?
None.
Councilman Williams? Councilman Schmidt?
No.
Councilman Barone?
Just to clarify, your motion would be that the homeowner would be paying all costs.
Yes, I didn't get a chance to finish reading before we entertained. The motion was going to be entertain a motion to direct staff to proceed with trading city lot 100 for V's lot 102 with costs paid for by the V's. That's going to be the motion. So approved.
Need a vote?
We didn't vote.
Oh, we haven't voted yet. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The staff is directed to proceed with the trade. And that completes the agenda for tonight. Meeting is adjourned. Not all that. Not that all.